Hi, Internet, and welcome to FindLaw's 5 and 5. It's the show that takes you through 5 interesting legal stories from FindLaw in about 5 minutes. I'm Joe Fabush, a lawyer and a writer here at FindLaw. So there's no getting around it. It has been a crazy last couple of weeks. We are going to dive right in by talking about when you can get fired for what you post online. We'll also touch on why Jimmy Kimmel may have an uphill battle to filing a First Amendment claim if he chooses to pursue it. I also want to talk about AI companies. There's a recent proposal to ease regulatory burdens to improve AI research. Finally, I want to talk about how to reduce taxes when selling your primary home, and we'll end by discussing what is and is not sports betting under the law. There's a lot to get to, so let's get started. Political tensions are higher than ever right now, and sadly, America's seeing an uptick in violence, with the shocking assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk in Utah making national headlines. After that tragedy, social media lit up with aggressive hot takes and even saying things like we're destined for another civil war. Were these people sharing extreme opinions? Absolutely. Were they protected under the First Amendment? Again, absolutely. But what happens if you get swept up in the online reaction? Can you lose your job for it? Well, again, the answer is absolutely. See, while the First Amendment protects speech from government punishment, it doesn't shield you from consequences at work. Private employers set their own rules, and if you post something inflammatory, especially about someone like Kirk, you could face termination or boycotts. This applies whether you're a media analyst, a teacher, or even someone in the military. And remember, the internet never forgets. So before you hit post, maybe take a beat because your words could be remembered long after the headlines fade. Of course, the law is never that straightforward, so let's talk about whether Jimmy Kimmel might have a First Amendment claim. If ABC dropped the show because audiences were offended, that's not censorship, it's private action. But there's one wrinkle worth flagging, what's called government jawboning. That's when officials pressure private companies, often behind the scenes, to silence a voice they don't like. If Kimmel could prove FCC Chair Brendan Carr pressured the network, that could raise a real constitutional question. However, these cases can be challenging. Kimmel would have to prove that censorship resulted from government coercion and not voluntary action by Disney or Nexstar, who would likely argue the termination was due to the Kirk controversy and the struggling late-night format. Switching gears now, let's talk about AI. The tech that some say will usher in a new utopia, while others think of it as an extinction-level event. That debate is alive and well in Congress, as Senator Ted Cruz recently pushed for the Sandbox Act, a law that aims to give AI companies 2 years of freedom from federal regulations, all to help U.S. firms compete with China. But the plan faces pushback. Skeptics want careful regulation and point out that both the feds and state governments have worked hard to recently enact strong AI protections, from labeling chatbots to banning deepfakes in politics. Cruz's bill wouldn't overrule those state laws, but critics worry that even temporary deregulation could risk privacy, child safety, and more. Will loosening the reins accelerate innovation, or will it open the door to abuse? With Congress divided, one thing's certain: the fight over AI's future regulation is just getting started. All right, stop, Joe, I hear you saying. Enough with this broad legal analysis. I just want you to save me money like a good lawyer. Well, fair enough. Here's how to save money by minimizing your capital gains tax when you sell your primary home. So the capital gains tax is what you owe on when you sell your house at a profit. But the good news is that if you lived in your house for at least 2 of the last 5 years, you can usually exclude up to $250,000 in profit if you're single, or $500,000 if you're married. Now, the housing market being what it is, if you're selling it above that, it's usually taxed at about 15% if you're in the middle income tax brackets. So want to shrink your tax bill? What you can do is hang on to every receipt for improvements and selling costs that you've made to your home. For example, a remodeled bathroom can quickly cut into your taxable profit, and that often lowers your tax burden to under the exempted amount. In addition, you can do things like make sure your sale qualifies as a long-term capital gain, and you can also consider strategies like converting your home to a rental or swapping investment properties if you're just looking to defer that tax burden. There's also a proposed bill in Congress introduced by Marjorie Taylor Greene that could possibly take capital gains taxes off the table for future primary home sales, so that's worth monitoring as well. Now, I know I went through all of that very quickly, so if you have more questions, head to FindLaw.com/legalblogs to learn more about minimizing or eliminating the capital gains taxes on home sales. Let's say you're now flush with cash from the tax-free sale of your home, and you want to gamble some of it on Cal Raleigh of the Seattle Mariners hitting a dinger tonight. Well, if you go to Kalshi, you're technically not placing a sports bet. Instead, you're buying an event contract. At least that's Kalshi's argument. But Massachusetts is arguing in a new lawsuit that this is nothing but a loophole Kalshi is exploiting to skirt state gambling laws. It wants to shut Kalshi down for running an unlicensed betting operation. Meanwhile, Kalshi, which is backed by Robinhood, claims event contracts are regulated by the feds and shouldn't fall under state gambling laws. With lawsuits flying and the possible Supreme Court showdown in the making, what happens to Kalshi is not an outcome I'd personally bet on. All right, well, that's all I'll talk about for today. Again, please do like and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening to this. Really helps us out. There's been a lot going on, but the news never sleeps. So if you want to keep up to date on all of the latest legal developments, please do check us out at FindLaw.com. In the meanwhile, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.